Hello, my friend, and welcome. We're going to talk a little bit about self-love and some key practices that will support you in developing the freedom and the joy and the ease and the resiliency of self-love. The conversation today is about needs, in particular, the needs to feel seen, heard, and understood. Us human beings, we have basic needs for shelter, for food, for water, and we also have emotional and social needs. And those can include the needs that I just described to feel seen, heard, and understood. We may also have needs to want to be able to express ourselves or to create or to be able to cry and feel what we feel. Everyone has a lot of needs that will fall into certain common categories, and we will also have very specific ones and ways to embody and receive those needs that are very unique to us. But in the general sense, to be seen, heard, and understood is pretty fucking universal. This is something that I have come to understand and experience in my context of romantic relationships, and it's definitely a place where our deepest needs are in constant sort of, I don't want to say they're under threat, but it's really a space where our patterning can bring to the surface our relationship with our needs and the ways in which we are unaware of what we need and not giving ourselves what we need, or maybe deferring to safety in another person and sort of people pleasing and pushing down what we really need to feel whole and good and free in ourselves. So it's a great exploration and playground. And maybe you're watching this video and you're interested in self-love, but you're in a relationship. Self-love doesn't stop in a relationship. In fact, self-love starts in a relationship and is an essential aspect of a relationship. But that relationship, romantic relationships, will really bring to the surface the ways in which we are not loving ourselves, the ways in which we are not meeting our needs, and bring to our attention and drive us towards a better relationship with self so that we can start to meet our own needs, or at least play a role in meeting our own needs. And that's really the key aspect of self-love here that I want to leave you with. So if you're going to take away one thing, it's that self-love is an invitation to play a role in meeting our own needs. In romantic relationships, we often are looking, or as we're growing and evolving and early on in romantic relationships and in codependent relationships, we tend to expect the other person to meet all of our needs for us, which is an unrealistic expectation because they're also a human being trying to have needs met, and they may or may not be unconsciously wanting you to meet them, and you're trying to get your needs met from them. And it's just this kind of like, that's why relationships explode, when there's not an awareness of the deeper layers of what's going on and a responsibility for having your own needs met. And that's the invitation here, and the love in that is remarkable. Like, you get to be responsible for meeting your own needs. It's like self-care on steroids. Instead of thinking that, oh, I got to get it out there from them, what if I could satisfy my own need to be seen, my own need to be heard, my own need to be understood? Again, I think really primary needs for us that are so baked in the way that we are connected to each other, and we're social beings. So if you're in a romantic relationship and you're having some aches and pains around, are my needs being met? Well, ask the question, am I meeting my own needs? In what ways am I expecting my needs to be met in the external? And are those expectations reasonable? In what ways could I take more responsibility for and offer more love and care to myself and play a role in meeting these needs for myself? So when it comes to being seen, heard, and understood, here are 3 practices that you can try that I have found to be really, really powerful for me in my journey, where I have looked to a partner to see and validate me and put so much pressure on them to do that. And there are different spaces in which this can come up. Social media, we're looking to be seen and heard and understood by people. And that's why the like button is so remarkably powerful to our wiring, because it does satisfy that need, but not in a really sustainable and, well, in a really unsustainable way, because we're getting it from out there and then we're craving more of it, and we're being disempowered to be able to give it to ourselves in the way that really is going to sustain and resource the ever flowing infinite well of love and life that you are and is inside of you. And so we want to tap into that and start to create a connection with that. So to be seen is such a beautiful, important part of being human and feeling love. Imagine when you are in your darkest moment and you have someone really see you and understand what you're going through. Like, they're seeing you crying and they're not trying to change you or judge you. There's so much beauty and power in that presence. And we absolutely can and should be in relationships that offer that to us. And if we are ceding 100% responsibility to others to offer that seeing of ourselves, we're really, first of all, we struggle to be able to fully receive it from others because we're not believing it in ourselves, we're not giving it to ourselves. And we also lose this whole playground of territory where we can really satisfy our heart's desires on a really deep level. So to be seen, what I do to practice this, hold on, coffee sip. I have a need for 10 cups of coffee in the morning. Just kidding. I do like 2, and they're half calf, because otherwise I'm a rocket ship and you wouldn't understand half the shit I say. I digress to progress. Not editing this out. No. You can see me, warts and all. Let's fucking go. To be seen, one of the greatest things you can do is look at yourself in the mirror and just see yourself. And I'm sure you've heard of this mirror practice, and there are different ways to do it, and you can create what feels really good to you. But just see yourself in the mirror. See yourself fully, see yourself wholly, see the beauty in you. See the parts of yourself that you judge. And can you hold all of you? See this beautiful, beautiful human being who is 20, 30, 40 years of life and body and cells that have grown and died and changed, and injuries, and just how much has the spirit and the body that you are living in gone through. And can you see yourself in the mirror on a daily basis, as a regular practice, in the mundane moments, but also in the most important and profound and emotional and heavy and beautiful moments? Can you see yourself in your joy when you're fucking hyped up on your 10 cups of coffee and you're like, wow, this feels fucking good. And you look at yourself and you're like, yes, you, I love you. You're fucking awesome. And can you, in the moments where you're so deeply hurting and your eyes are watering and the waterworks are releasing the grief from your system, can you see yourself and hold yourself and say, I love you. And I know you're hurting right now. And I got you. Something so powerful about being able to offer that to ourselves. So you can do this as a daily practice, once a day, in the morning, waking up. Hey, I see you, I love you, I got you, let's get it. Whatever works for you. This is my language. You get to create your own and create a relationship with this vision and view of yourself, and how you see yourself is really your creative process. So get to know how you would like to see yourself, and then offer that to yourself as this really beautiful gift of self-love. Number 2, to be heard. This is huge for me. This is why I'm here on fucking YouTube channel talking. It's taken me a long time to get over the fucking, I want to be heard, but I'm afraid to be heard. And what, it's like, no. We're out here. I've done enough giving myself what I need to feel heard, to be able to show up here and say, hey, I'm happy to be heard by you. I'm happy to express myself fully. And this is a distinction that's important too. Again, and I come back to this, we expect and want the external world to satisfy these needs, and they can. to certain degrees. Romantic relationships are, interdependency is about, working together to have your needs met. And there's a beautiful teamwork in that. And so I'm not saying that we need to be solo and isolated and, I got to do it on my own. No, 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 no. But I think for most of us, what's missing from the cauldron of wider love is the self part. And so that's the invitation here, is to just bring a little bit of balance back into the way that you relate to having your needs met. And the more that we take responsibility for a empowered sort of half of the teeter-totter when it comes to self and other, inner and external meeting of our needs, the more that we do that, the more that we will actually receive and benefit and value and let in what comes in the external. If you're not seeing and hearing yourself, it's so damn difficult to believe that people see and hear you. Even when the most beautiful people see and hear you and are there 100%, you may not believe it because you don't know how to give it to yourself. How we do one thing is how we do everything. How we relate to ourselves is how we relate to the world around us. So what I want to say is that me being here right now is because I have practiced this, because I hear myself and I'm in dialogue, and it allows me to open up to the belief that I can be and deserve to be and am heard by you, which is important to me. There's a need here being met, and it's beautiful. So thank you for listening. I love and appreciate you, and I love and appreciate me. When it comes to being heard, what I do is a self-talk walk. And say what you will about talking to yourself. It's not fucking crazy. It's probably the healthiest thing you can do. If anybody says you're crazy because you're talking to yourself on the street, they're the crazy one because they're not talking to themselves on the street and they're not having a dialogue with themselves and they're hurting and in pain. And I say that with compassion, but also fuck that shit and don't listen to them. Listen to me because I want to be heard. Please hear me. Walk and talk to yourself and be in dialogue and let yourself express and rant. Sometimes we want to go and we have a tendency, and I've done this in the past where, I have so much to share and I want to go share it to the people that I feel safe being heard by, or I expect to be heard by, and I'll dump and yada, yada, yada. And I'm processing. And again, that's really beautiful. And you can have amazing spaces to do that. If you want to work with a coach who will support and receive that, hit me up. Let's fucking go. And it's never enough if we are not really truly hearing ourselves. And it's unsustainable, again, if we're leaning too heavily on those who also have their own needs that maybe are not being met. So to hear yourself means to express and vent and rage and cry and ask questions. We want it. So there's a process that I go through when I am on a walk, and I leave my phone at home, because we want to get away from distractions. If you can be in nature, that's fucking amazing. If you can be in a park and just walk in a loop so you're not like distracted so much by the external world, and it's really just excuse me, boogers, a really inward facing experience. This is me walking in a circle in a park. Beautiful, perfect, because this is a connection that requires presence and attention to yourself and what you need to share with yourself and to let it out. Let it out, stream of consciousness, and let it be messy. Let it be including the resentment and the pettiness and the pity and all of the things that you really need to feel and express, and hear yourself. Hear yourself. And this is also meaning a need to express yourself too. Hear yourself. And the invitation too is, and this can be a process for people who are coming into a more empowered relationship with themselves, is to, I like to call it the hero's journey. I'll go on a walk and I'll be upset about something or confused about something, and I might be spinning my wheels and all the just conditioned thoughts come out, and a lot of them are not where I want to land, and then you can bring in this supportive process of inquiry, of questioning, of starting to ask yourself, like, how do I want to view this? And is that true? What I just said there, okay, it's good, it's expressed, that's its raw form. And how may I, there's a creative dialogue that you can have with yourself. So it's not just hearing yourself, it's also seeing yourself, it's also expressing yourself. And it's also being able to offer support and validation and inquiry, which are absolute gifts that you can give to yourself. And I really like to land in some sort of summary and finalization before I end my walk. Okay, I've heard you, I see you, I understand that you are. So all of these needs are embedded in each of these practices, but speaking to each as a specific to feel seen, heard, and understood. I hear you. I hear you. I hear what you're going through. I understand. And here's where we really want to land. And can you come to, a full stop and arrive at the gate when you get home? That can be really powerful, in the same way that maybe you sit with a friend and I want to express something, or you sit with a loved one or a therapist or me as your coach, and we go full circle. We have like a finality, a closure of, wow, I feel fully expressed. And here's the conclusion of where I land, and that feels good. That feels good for right now. It doesn't have to be perfect. You don't have to solve world hunger or your own hunger. Hopefully, maybe you just needed to eat and you're like, wow, I'm cranky because I need to fucking eat. So maybe you solve your own hunger. It's a beautiful way to offer yourself the gift of being heard. Finally, to be understood. And again, all of these are helping us understand ourselves. This is a journaling practice for me. And it's quite similar to what I just described in this kind of hero's journey of, developing the skill and the sort of intuition to kind of flow with different strategies of journaling. And maybe you've played with some of these before, where you have a journal prompt and you're just answering a journal prompt. Maybe free writing is something you've played with, where you're just stream of consciousness expressing. Maybe lists work really well, like a gratitude list, what have I accomplished list. There's so many different tools within this. And it's something to play with and get curious about. And if you're interested in journaling prompts that are going to support this practice, you can follow my weekly newsletter, sign up for my weekly newsletter, which I'll put a link for here in the bio, or whatever the fuck you call this thing on YouTube. And I offer some journal prompts in addition to the writings and teachings that I put out weekly. Journaling is a really beautiful way, and it's this inquiry process of curiosity and getting to know, shifting out of judgment of I shouldn't be feeling this, or this is not, like we bring so much self-criticism and so much criticism into the way that we relate in the world, primarily to ourselves, but again, inevitably because of this, how we relate to ourselves is how we relate to the world around us. That criticism seeps into and really tanks so much of life. And it's so sad. And when we bring in inquiry and curiosity, this tone of like what's here? And how may I better get to know this? That's what we can really bring into our journaling practice as a way to, in our self-dialogue practice as a way to get to know what's really here and what's happening, and how can I hold space for that and love that and understand myself from my patterns and my pettiness, which, we all can feel that, and there's no shame there. And for me, and in calling you forward, that's not where we want to land. And the only way that we land somewhere wider than the tendencies of criticism and judgment and resentment and you did this and blame and victimhood is if we love all of ourselves and we offer ourselves the love that those parts of ourselves that get really stuck there, if we offer them the opportunity to feel seen, heard, and understood, not just by others, but first by ourselves. And so when we're journaling, we have a beautiful opportunity, I believe, to understand what's really going on for me by free writing, letting it all out, and then asking ourselves questions or engaging in journal prompts that support your process. This is something that is so baked into coaching as a practice, and asking powerful questions to help guide you to greater self-awareness. And in complement to that self-awareness, also compassion, to be aware is one thing. I'm aware of my patterns. I'm aware of what's going on. And can I bring in, and I'm going to do a whole series of videos on self-compassion. How can I love and accept what I'm feeling? That's the energy that we want to understand with. And we can bring that into the way that we journal as we ask questions and get to know. And then if you want to complete the hero's journey in the same way that we finish our self-talk walk, we can come back to, okay, where do I want to land? Here's where I started. I had all this fucking anger and fuck this person and yada, yada, yada. And I started to inquiry and get to know, like, what's really here for me? Is this true? Like, do I want to stay angry? What would support me expressing and processing my anger? And then there can be some conclusion, some clarity, which is so important, and I think its own need, that, or really perhaps even an outcome of these three needs being met and supported by our own self-practice, is having this clarity, this integrity, this sense of peace and freedom of like, hey, I'm here now and I know where I'm at. There's a wholeness that we're really creating through self-love. And it's not this romantic, like, I'm high all the fucking time. There's so much joy that can arise from it. And what's really here that we're creating is just this sense of contentment, of enoughness, of like, wow, I don't need to reach so much into the outside world, insatiably chasing the carrot on the stick, trying to get something out there that you have all the fucking tools for creating in here. It's all in you, and it all starts with self-love. So I invite you to play with these, practice these daily, figure out which ones feel good for you, make them your own. There's no prescription here. I share from my own experience and what works for me, and you're gonna be totally different. And let it teach you, let it guide you, let it love you, let yourself love yourself. Oh my goodness, you're so deserving, you're so worthy. I love you. May you learn to deeply, deeply love yourself, warts and all, strength, the shininess that you are. Your luster is so lovable. And damn, I hope that you fucking see here and understand that. If you dig this, you want to hear more of me, I want you to hear more of me. I want you to see more of me. I want you to understand more of me. Thank you. Thank you for your kind attention. You can subscribe to this channel. I've got more on self-love, self-leadership, integrity, meditations. If you're down to bring all of this philosophy and talk, there are practices here, please. This is information pads the runway. It's not a great analogy, but it pads the runway to being able to experience and feel and live and bring these concepts into reality. But the practices that I gave you are where shit's really gonna hit the fan. This is, again, not a great analogy. I'm losing my shit here. So make sure you practice or don't practice. There's no pressure here. But if you really want to feel into these things, please practice and try out some of the guided meditations, because meditation is where we bring the knowledge into wisdom through action, through embodiment. And that's the only way that you will really, really get to deeply feel what self-love feels like. And I want that for you as much as you can understand it cognitively. May you feel it and believe it on a deep level. I love you. Have a beautiful now.